This is Gemara Metziah, Daf Kuf Yud Dalid. I'm holding the very bottom of Kuf Yud Gimel Amid Beis in midst of discussion what one has to do with a mashkoin and the halachas and the care that we have for the loive. Then, as much as he's fallen on tough times and he's required to take halva and he needs to put up a mashkoin, but we return the mashkoin to him at different intervals, etc. So says the Gemara on the last line, Maskif la Rav Chaga. V'lei ask the Gemara. We've been discussing that when you take a mashkoin, you have to make sure to leave behind the basic necessities that the loiva needs, etc. Says the Gemara, why doesn't the lender say lavalai karamis? Why do I have to support you? I gave you alva, and now I have to make sure you have your basic necessities. Amarle Abaye, so responds Abaye as we turn over to Kof Yudalid Amid Aleph Ivra Alai Karami. Guess what? It is your responsibility. As the top Rashi points out, Ivra is what? Bemes. Yes, you, the lender, are responsible for the loive. Why? Mishum shenemar ulacha tiyetz says in the Torah, it should be a tzedakah for you that the lender, the malva, is required to act b'tzedakah, to act with an extra level of righteousness towards the lender. Says the Gemara, Yibayiluhu. The second line asks the Gemara, Shaila, Ma'u sheyisadru b'bal chayv. What is the halacha with regarding assessing for the Baal Chayv? What's the question? Migamar micha micha me'erchin or loy? Do we learn and equate this halacha to erchin or not? And this is the going to tell us what living requirements are required. Tashma says the Gemara, this shalach Ravin begarta davar zeh shalti, sent to the letter that this item I asked. Chol Rabbi Isai v'larmeli davar, they didn't respond to me anything. Bram, however, kachaisa sheila. The following was the sheila. Ha'omer, if someone says, they asked the following the base medrash. Lebedi kabayis, someone says, I'm going to give a money lebedi kabayis. Mahu sheyisadru. What is Allah regarding assessing his needs? And Rav Yaakov Mishrei Dvar Padav, Rav Yirmi Mishrei Delfa Amri Kal V'chaymer Mi Baal Chayv Uma Baal Chayv Shemachzirin, a Baal Chayv that we what? We return items to him when he needs him. We return his pillow. We return the other items. And yet, what do they understand for the pashtos? That Ein Misadrin, we do not have to assess for him, making sure he has the very basics. Hektish, Ein Machzirin, Enotin, Shein Misadrin. So says the Gemara, what do we see? We see clearly that there's no assessment that has to be made with regard to the living quarters of the loiva. And the Gemara wants to prove, even though, and let's remind ourselves, which we should have been makdim, that we've already yesterday in Kuf Yud Gimel spoken out that there is a shuma, there is this assessment that has to be made. However, the Gemara now is trying to figure out what is the lemaisa. Do we actually do this? It's very nice that we quoted a brisa. It's very nice that there was a conversation that centered around making this assessment. But now the Gemara wants to know what is lemaisa the halach. So the Gemara, number one, says that we see from the pashtos of what they said in the base medrash, it would be that no. It seems that no assessment is made. Rav Yechanan Amar, and says Rav Yechanan, Neder Bercha Ksiv. It says in the Torah, a neder regarding the erech valuation. What do we learn now? Ma'erchin misadrin. Just like when it comes to erchin, we are misader. Av hektish, we are misadrin. We yes are misader. So we have a machlaikas First they said no, and now Rav Yochanan is saying yes. Says the Gemara of Idach, which is Rabbi Yirmiyah. What does he do with the pasuk of Neder be'erkecha? He learns from there that we judge each item according to its kavod, according to its significance. That what? That when it comes to hektish, when it comes to figuring out the value of a person, it's nidim each limb of his body, etc., what it is worth. So the Gemara is teaching us that it's a machlaikas with regard to how far we evaluate the loiva and making sure that we leave him his basic necessities or not. Ask the Gemara, I don't understand. 15 lines down, the first line is Hektish, Visadu Bibal Chayiv. Says the Gemara, flipping everything around. Why, Lamaisa, do we not create a Seder, create this assessment by Bibal Chayiv? Kalva Chayim Reme'erchin. U'ma'erchin she'machzirin yam misadrin, v'chav she'machzirin din she'misadrin. Omar Kra, says the Gemara, no. Because from the pasuk that says who we learn out machu only the case of erichin. That's when we create this shuma, but not in other cases. Not in the case of a bal chayv. What about the other mandarma that says we do create this shuma? Hayat shem bevchusai mitchilasai v'atzayfa yachzirai. That this is teaching us you have to be mechusa, you have to be this ani from the beginning to end. Then that's when we have such a scenario. So now the Gemara flips it around to the other mandamar. Excuse me, not the other mandamar. This is the third detail. We had erechin, we had bal chayv, and now we have hektish. Says the Gemara, why by hektish do we not return the items to the person? Omar Krav Ishachav, says the Torah B'Salmasai U Veirachecha. He should sleep in his clothing and I'll get a bracha. Yata Hektish Shein Sarich Bracha. Hektish is not an entity that requires the bracha, and therefore it would seem that only time there's a bracha. The only time the clothing, the item will be returned is someone that would require a bracha, which is the malva. Says the Gemara, 1 second, why doesn't hektish require bracha? You eat, you're satiated, and you bless Hashem. So what do we see? Yes, we bless Hashem. So seemingly hektish the same. And that's the conclusion. So by hektish there is no shuma, and by our case of al chayv, it's a machlokes whether l'maisa we make the shuma or not. Continues the Gemara on this conversation whether there is a shuma or not by a bal chayv. Ashcha Rabba bar Avua le'Eliyahu. No one less than Eliyahu Navi is met by Rabba bar Avua. 4 lines from the bottom of the cover, basic who's standing in the cemetery of Goyim. Amar Le, Rabbi Avua says to Mashiach Hadar Bal Chayv, Eliyahu Navi, tell us what's the Lamaisa. Amar Le responds Eliyahu Gamar Micha Merchen, Kabi Erchen Ksev, and Machu Meherkecha, Kabi Bal Chayv Ksev, Chiyamach Achicha. So says Eliyahu Navi, we should equate the two, and therefore that is, we would go with the Manda Amar, like we just learned in the Tanakama, that equates Bal Chayv with Erechin as the, that it should be just like Erechin. We turn over to Kividalim Abeis and continues the Gemara, and Rabbi Ravua, once he, not every day do you have Eliyahu Navi to ask questions to, so once he had Eliyahu Navi at his disposal, he continues and he asks, Minayin la'aram shal yitraim. How do we know that if someone's aron is undressed, you're not allowed to take off truma? D'chsev lo yirabecha ervas davar. So no, it says you should not see an erva, and therefore when you say the name of Hashem, you cannot be undressed, and that's the reason why it says Eliyahu Navi, someone who's arum cannot take off truma. So Eliyahu Navi teaches that number one, the source for not taking of for not making a bracha arum is lo yevachar v'stavar. Number two is that we learn the gzer shava micha micha me'erchen, and just like by erchen, there would be an ashuma, there would be an assessment, evaluation of the person. So to by a bal chayv. Continues Rabbi Avua and asks Eliyahu Navi in the second line of Kuvidalim Abeis Amrle Lav Kayinu. Eliyahu, how are you here in basic varais? Are you not a kayin? Mar vaytem kamar basic varais. Amar le Eliyahu Navi loy masni mar tayrais. You clearly didn't learn tayrais. The Tanya we learned in a brayso. Rashbi Omer says the Hiligor Shemini Chai. Kivrei Angela kon ein mitam on shenemar vetin sonai soy merisi adam, says the pasuk atem, that you are my sheep, the sheep of my pasture, says the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Atem kruyim adam veinakum kruyim adam, so there is no Toma. Amar Le, excuse me, I apologize. Let's get our page back. Here we go. Amar Le continues. Rabbi Avua to ask Eliyahu Navi, Be'arba loy metzina, B'shita metzina. I'm not able to learn all four seders of Mishnah Starim. You want me even to learn Tyrus? Amar Le, Eliyahu Navi says, V'amai, why can't you learn all of Mishnayis? Amar Le, Dachikli Melsa, says Rabbi Avua, Lamaisa, the money is getting difficult. Dibre v'alei l'gan Eden. Eliyahu Hanavi takes Rabbi Avua up to Gan Eden. Amar lei. Eliyahu Hanavi says to him, Pshoit glimach, take off your clothing, Safei, Shkal mahani tarfi, and collect some of the leaves from Gan Eden. Safi shakal. Rabbi Avua took some leaves. Kavin Afik. When he was leaving Gan Eden, Shama, he heard the Kamar. He heard a voice saying, Man kochalal Rabbi bar Avua, who is consuming the reward for Rabbi bar Avua. When Rabbi Avua heard and realized that he's taking some of his reward for the next world now, Nafat Shitane, he shook the leaves out, realizing it was not worth it. But afilu achi, I say liglime, his jacket that was touched the leaves of Gan Eden, when he came back home, he realized had a certain fragrance. Sochat glima reiche, it absorbed the fragrance of the leaves. Zavne, and he was able to sell it, Beatrice Alfidin, for 12,000 dinarim, Balgino lechasvanusa, and he gave the money to his son-in-laws, which the Farshim explain that he didn't want to benefit at all from Gan Eden, and therefore he took the money and he gave it out to his family so that he personally did not benefit. And even further, so why the son-in-law? Because if he gave to his own children, at some level he would gain. His children get Yarshim, his Yerusha, they wouldn't need it now, etc., etc. So that's the fascinating story with Rabbi Avua and Eliyahu Hanavi. We got involved in that because we wanted to figure out whether there is a din of a shuma, an evaluation of by Erechin there is, whether it applies to Baal Chayv, and Eliyahu Hanavi responded that it does. Now, of course, obvious kasha. We know Torah Lava Shemayimi. We've already had fascinating and numerous Gemaras that we don't prove anything from what's going on in Shemayim. So maybe Pshat as Eliyahu Hanavi. Whenever it was Nifter, he went up to Shemayim alive. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan, let's continue 15 lines down. The first one line is Vim. Says the Vim is Ani, if the person is an Ani, do not lie down with his security. Says the Gemara, what's the deal? Kashir. Shach. If he's a wealthy person, then you do not have to give him back his security at night. My Kamar says, what does this mean? How are you allowed to use? It sounds like if the loiva is an ashir, then the malva is allowed to hold on to and benefit from his mashkin. How is that allowed? If he's an ani, don't have his avot etzlecha. You can be shachiv while his avuta is etzlecha, meaning not that you're benefiting from his item, but that you do not have to return it at night. Tana Rabbanan continues the Gemara smack in the middle of the Amid. The first line is Amalveh. Hamalveh is Chavei Rein Rasha Lemashkana. If someone lends money, he's not allowed to take a security. Even Chayiv Lahasir Loi. And he's not allowed to, he doesn't have to give it back to him. And he is over in all these Isurim. So this brisa is a shtickle tongue twister. You're not allowed to take a mashkin. You don't have to return it, and you're yes over. What in the world is going on over here? It says where Micah Amar. Can we try to get some clarity in this brisa? So Amar Rav Sheisha comes along Rav Sheisha and he says, let me explain to you what's going on in this brisa. Hachi Kamar, this is what it means. If you do, and you're going to be over in all these shemais, seifa, what does that mean? That means the end of the brisa. If you don't return his pillow at night, etc., then you're over on all these shemais. That's the way that Rav Sheishes learns this brisa. Rava comes along and Rava says, Rava Amar Hachi Kamer. Hamav is chavin rasha mashkin. Ve mashkin chayiv lachzir lei. But medvar mamurim shemashkin shem shazavas. When is it referring to when you take a mashkin out of time of the avah? Aval mashkin shem shazavas in a chayiv lachzir lei. You don't have to return it to him. And now, when the brisa says every chov shem zelu, it's going on Arisha. It's going in the first case when you took the mashkin shalei b'shas alvasai. And therefore you have chayiv to return. And if you don't, you're going to be over. Says the Gemara Tani Rav Shizvi Kamei Derava. 12 lines on the bottom. First one line is Kamei. Says in the Torah, Ba'ashem Zeshiva Nuloi. Till the sun comes down, you have to return it to him. Zuksus Laila. It's referring to nighttime clothing. Hashev Tashev Leis Avot. You should return to him the security Kivaya Shemesh. As the sun goes down, Zuksus Yoim. This is daytime clothing. Amar lei diamama be'elayla lamali. It sounds like you're returning the daytime clothing at night. Utayla bi'amama lamali. It sounds like you're returning the nighttime clothing in the day. It sounds backwards. Amar lei asaymei. Well, should I delete the brisa? Amar lei loy hakikam. This is what it means. Ad bayas shemesh, until the sun goes down to shivanu loy zuksus yoim. That you take his ksus yoim as a security at night. That what? That you take as a security by the daytime. And we'll stop over here. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmaya.